Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Early Edge. It's going to be a great Wednesday. We've got a great cast for you. I see people in the chat already. CLE fan Joe Neuenfeld. Mark Thomas says Turkey cashing all kinds of tickets. Let's take a look at the recap screen because, yes, Buckets did cash the Turkey bet, but we end up going 2-3. Shout out to Matt Severance for the Montreal Canadiens money line pick. Chip Patterson, he had the under 23.5. A field goal was kicked off of a personal foul on the final drive of that Liberty, New Mexico State game. So they get to 26 instead of just 23. Tough break there. We go 2-3. Let's bring in the stars of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, you know this show is brought to you by BetMGM. Make it legendary. Buckets, you're legendary. Amags, you're legendary. And Danny Brasco, you are also legendary. Buckets, the first thing you asked me to do before we get into anything, you said, Sia, don't bring up the quarterback top 32 list. Whoops. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm going to ignore that entirely because I want to shout out the chat real quick. Yes, we did cash our BTTS in Turkey versus Georgia yesterday, but because of the chat, we cashed like 4 more tickets on that matches. There's so much more than just the bets. When we were looking at questions, we had questions on Turkey, money line plus over 1.5 goals. Kenan Yildiz, anytime goal score at plus 200. Turkey to score in both halves at plus 125. We talked about this with the chat and saw so many more cashes from all of you. So I want to shout out the chat personally here, Sia, as we start another, what's the day? Wednesday together.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the midst of a bit of a cold streak, and I just got to give the chat a even bigger shout out than Buckets just did because you all are putting sharp picks in there all the time. Yeah, sorry, Buckets. I'm always putting you down, but that wasn't on purpose. Amags, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. And speaking of the chat and I guess kind of lumping in together our Discord, if you're still hanging out in the MLB channel with us, there was some definitely some cashing going on last night. I have to say, I got beat up a little bit by Yoshinobu Yamamoto. I've got to tip my cap to him. I mean, just an incredible 9 innings there from him, complete game. He gave up a leadoff home run. I was starting to feel good about fading him on the props and whatnot. Leadoff homer. No, that was going to be one of their only 3 hits on the night. So a terrible performance from the Brewers. We've seen some comments already, some folks in here that kind of got done dirty by them as well. So
fair enough. Danny Brasco, you've got UFC today. I assume you've got some eyes on the NFL this week as well, though.
I do, but I wanted to beat some lines. I think that my dog is going to flip to a favorite. In fact, she's starting to already, so I want to get this out. And I got a Canadian fighter that's fighting at home in Vancouver. We got an exciting fight card. UFC Vancouver has low-key a really good lineup of fights, so I'm excited to talk about that and see if we can beat some lines today.
All right. Gipper's pick says clean sweep in DWCS last night. Buckets, what's DWCS?
I don't know.
Just venture a guess.
DWCS? Dog, DWC, walking competition S.
That's good. Best in show. Gipper's called Best in Show. No, it's Dana White Contender Series. It's basically the proving grounds for UFC fighters. If you put on an all-time performance, he's immediately signing you like right after the show, and it's where fireworks are produced and great talents are found. So it was amazing last night. Nice work, Gippers.
Buckets, I didn't know what it was either, so that's why I just passed it off to you. So, yeah, no sweat there. All right, let's get to some picks. It looks like Ben is in the chat. He says, Eric David, check Sia's Twitter page. That must be regarding the top 32. I did my homework. A lot of you did your homework and posted it as well. If you have a top 32 list, post it or post it under the tweet that I've got out there. Let's see. Almost thought Gipper was betting on Dancing with the Stars. That's what I thought it was too, Jen. That is exactly what I was confused about as well. All right, Buckets, no confusion here. You're covering soccer. What you got?
Before we get started, Sia, are you okay if I please have a sip of water real quick?
Yes, you may.
Okay, my throat's parched, so I just want to.
You know what's good. Oh, I thought the bucket. I thought he was going to bring the bucket.
Yeah,
out.
I thought it was like what?
No. I needed a sip of water. Let's talk about Women's Champions League this afternoon because I've got shout out Jimmy Conrad here, a parlay partay for everyone because sometimes it's hard to find value when the over under on a soccer game is set to 7.5 like we have for multiple games this afternoon. First match I'm looking at is Vålerenga taking on Wolfsburg. I'm going with Wolfsburg over 1.5 team total for the first leg of this parlay. Wolfsburg looked terrifying against PSG in their opening match. They beat PSG when they were slight favorites, basically a pick 'em, and they beat them 4-0, and honestly probably could have beat them 5 or 6-0. This Wolfsburg team is devastating this season. They are on an absolute rampage, and nobody is getting in their way. So using this as a parlay piece, even though they might score 3 or 4 on their own. And we're parlaying that with Barcelona over 3.5 team total to get this to even money plus 100. I know that 3.5 might sound scary, but if you've never watched women's Barcelona football before, they are the most dominant soccer team on the planet across everyone. Just everyone. They are absolutely devastating. They beat my beloved Bayern Munich 7-1 in the opening match day of Champions League and then beat Atletico Madrid in league play 6-0. This team can beat anyone right now by multiple goals. I've got to parlay these together to get playable, to give myself a little bit of a safety net here, Sia, but this is tremendous value at even money.
All right. We're looking for a lot of goals for Barcelona. That's a pretty high team total, right, Buckets?
Yeah, no, it's an extremely high total. If you look at the Olympic Lyon match, the over-under for that match is set to 7.5. So women's league does tend to see more goals, but some of these offenses are just so dominant that defense just is kind of non-existent when you're playing against such a high caliber.
John in the chat says, Buckets is one of those guys that is funny without trying. Buckets, your response.
John in the chat said that?
Yes. Presumably not you.
I agree. I agree with John in the chat. Thank you, John.
See?
We do have to move along. I want to get to your pick in this Seattle Mariners game. And of course, if you have questions about MLB playoffs, whether it's this Mariners game or otherwise, let us know because we're going to answer those questions. We got Amags in the chat. Well, he's on the show, but he's also always in the chat, but he's on the show to answer your questions as well. Brasco, before we get there, you took a look at my top 32. There's some chatter in the chat there. What was your biggest objection? And what was the one, I don't know that you studied it. What was the one that you were like, okay, I kind of agree with this?
I'm pulling it up right now. I like that you had Jalen Hurts outside of the top 10. All these, the basis of him winning and being a successful quarterback does not mean that he's a great arm talent quarterback right at the position. So I think the Eagles' success sometimes inflates how we rate him amongst the class of QBs. I liked your call there. You had Drake May quite high. I know that stirred up the pot on Twitter. And you had JJ McCarthy ahead of some guys just based on kind of the potential, I think, out of the
here it is.
Kind of bottom of the barrel. Thank you, Ben. Bottom of the barrel QBs. I need to see more from him before, more than one quarter. But overall, I thought you put together a pretty dynamic list, and it was hard to poke too many holes in it. I liked it.
I mean, you're right about JJ McCarthy, but I did have him 28th overall. So it's not like I had him jumping a bunch of guys. It was just,
I might have Brock Purdy a little higher.
Interesting. I had him at 16. A lot of people had him a lot lower, which I thought was really, really interesting. But he tends to be in that middling range. But yeah, I agree with you on Brock Purdy for the most part. All right. As we get responses to this list, this rudimentary list that I put together, please put your responses in the chat if you have any. Let's get to some baseball. Amags, the Mariners, are they gonna do it again? Mariners money line?
Mariners money line here, Sia. I'm going to back the Mariners for a few reasons. Let me give you the two more obscure reasons. First off, I've got a buddy who's coming into town actually from Seattle, and that's where I'm at. I'm at the airport quiet room here waiting for him. No, somebody said I was at a detention center in the chat, which is kind of funny. Maybe after that Yankees season ended there in the way that it did, I should be, because they just made me crazy. But Mariners money line here today. And yes, one of my buddies is coming in from Seattle, kind of just a vibes play there. But also Buckets had mentioned somebody sent him something from some MLB team, and then he grabbed it before the show. And it was from the Mariners. It was from someone that works for the Mariners. So that was some nice alignment there. But if you really, have to know some of the numbers here, I think that the numbers really do favor the Mariners. Not only do they get back home up 2-0, and if you remember, the last team that we've seen go up 2-0 and go home was 2023 Rangers. What did they do in those next 3 games? Something that I am all too familiar with the Yankees year after year when they were kind of losing on the road time after time. The Rangers lost 3 games in a row on the road and had to go back home now down in the series. So this is definitely not over, but I think it may just be getting there. Shane Bieber is kind of a little like lifeline here, I guess. They're hoping that he could do well, but I didn't really like what I saw out of him in the last start against the Yankees. 5 hits, couldn't even finish 3 innings. And then in the regular season too, I mean, the expected ERA was a full run higher than the actual ERA. Actual was at 3.57. The expected was 4.57. Kind of interesting how some of those numbers for him and the underlying metrics didn't look very good. And then you kind of back it up, who's going to come in for Bieber if he starts to get shellacked as we saw last time? Well, it's going to be this bullpen who has not performed for the Jays. First off, they've been thinned out over the last couple of games. I get, the off day yesterday certainly was one that they needed to help them get right a little bit, but still, this bullpen over the last couple of games, 8 1/3 innings, 10 hits, 6 runs, 5 walks. I mean, they have just been terrible. On the other side, you've got a bullpen for the Mariners that has been absolutely locked down. They've allowed 1 hit through their 9 innings that they have covered. It's just been pretty incredible from the performance from the Mariners bullpen. I think getting back home, this price is about right for me. I mean, maybe it's a few cents short, and it is what it is. I'm just going to back the better team, in my opinion. And as we saw in the chat, someone here already said, I do think that this is the team that can beat the Dodgers. If the Blue Jays were to get through, I just don't think it's a great matchup. This bullpen for the Mariners is one that is really looking lethal. So I'm going to keep running with them. Like I said, I do think the price is kind of about right. So try to shop around, see if you can find a better price. But, Mariners to win this one. We've got some questions in the chat on props and whatnot. We can go into that after. But, kind of just a regular level-headed play here, Mariners to win.
Let me get to a couple of the questions right now, and then we'll get to some questions at the end of the show as well. Steve Folkerts, and I don't know if you commented on this specifically, Mariners over 3.5 minus 110.
So I did, and I said I pass on that for me for the full game because I do think that they're going to win. So then you're probably going to lose the bottom of the 9th unless they were to walk it off, right? But maybe go first 7 team total over 2.5. So you're in that first 7 innings now. You're going to guarantee you get all 7 of them. You're going to lose a run on the team total there. You pay up a little bit more on the price, but I don't like Shane Bieber. I do think if they get some runs, it's probably going to be in the first 5 anyways. So I think 2.5 on the first 7, get an extra couple of innings there.
All right. Instead of first 7, Igor wants to know about the first. Nerfy or Yurfy? These are a little gimmicky, so this I'm sure is just kind of a hey, I'm answering the question type of thing. But Mariners, Blue Jays, Nerfy or Yurfy?
Give me the Yurfy. Plus odds on the yes run first inning. That's actually where I used my boost yesterday in the game where Yamamoto gave up the leadoff homer. It actually did cash the yes run first inning, even though he was dominant. So yeah, give me the yes again at plus odds.
Go ahead, Buckets.
I've got a question for you, Amags, if that's all right with you.
Let's hear it.
All right. So I personally think the Mariners are going to win the World Series, right? And I'm looking at that line. It's plus 165. If that's not good enough for me to bet on, could I look at like a World Series MVP for the Mariners instead? Because like Cal Raleigh right now is plus 700 as the MVP. That sounds a little better to me than plus 165. Wanted to kind of get your take on that.
I do like that. The thing with the MVP is like a lot of times it can be an obscure player. Maybe look at, and I forgive me, I don't have the numbers in front of me because I can't bet MVP in New York here. So I'd have to look on the offshore as to actually what it is. But like Jorge Polanco or Josh Naylor, I think could really be some interesting calls where, maybe they hit a couple homer. I mean, Polanco has been super hot. That was a guy I was actually going to write up an article here today on the hits, runs, RBIs. You're getting plus money for a guy in the heart of that order who's been hitting. He's been hot. So I think it would probably be maybe looking at what those prices are versus Raleigh. I mean, Raleigh would, of course, be the guy that you would immediately think to. But what if Josh Naylor hits like 3 homers, right? That could be really impactful. So I'd look at those as well.
Jorge Polanco, just for people watching, is plus 2,200. Josh Naylor is plus 4,000 right now for World Series MVPs.
There you go. I would rather dabble in those than, go down to Raleigh there.
All right, thank you.
And I'll say my buddy who's pretty sharp, he actually recommended that I ladder up Polanco RBIs today. So I was interested in that if you want to sprinkle some more big plus money.
Well, Amags, before you even respond to that, Nicholas Brown in the chat, I think these are alt lines, but he says, thoughts on these Seattle Mariners, money line over half, I guess half a hit. Jorge Polanco, over half a hit for Jorge Polanco. 6+ George Kirby strikeouts thrown, under 7.5. Any thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, I think that each of them individually looks solid. You put them together in a parlay, it's always a bunch of variables, see what can happen. But, I do have to say the Polanco hits, I think the hits on RBI is definitely in place. I like that one. And then Kirby on the strikeouts is interesting because Toronto hasn't struck out a ton, right? That's a team we don't generally want to target for strikeouts, but pretty interesting how the whiff rate for Kirby has just jumped over the last, 30, 60 days here towards the end of the season. He's been really solid with some of these strikeout numbers. Now I get in the postseason, his 2 performances were against Detroit, not like the most formidable opponent, but still at a 4.5 number here on the straight line, that was actually enticing to me on a guy that if he were to last 6 innings, he'd be well below the one strikeout per inning level you would need to be at to go over that number. So I do like that. And then, hey, look, runs are probably going to be at a premium, not only with the Mariners bullpen, but just with the nature of playing in T-Mobile Park and being a pitcher's park, and of course the time of year and everything, right? So I do think when you look back at that Detroit series, it kind of shows that runs probably are at a premium in this park. So I do think the under is probably the play. But if you're going to parlay this, maybe go to 8, because then you're going to need a 9th run to beat you instead of 7.5 there.
Interesting. I notice a lot of people in the chat, Richard Pierre included, are asking for Katie Taylor's group ride play, because anything she said ends up being a group ride. So, Katie, if you haven't already put your play in there, hopefully you have one, because I know people are waiting for it, and they're probably waiting for a BetMGM odds boost. If you want to take any of these plays that we just discussed, including Mariners money line at -130, BetMGM players will receive an MLB postseason odds boost. Just make an MLB postseason wager, and if you win, you will receive extra winnings in unrestricted bonus dollars. It's really that easy. Just use the odds boost token on BetMGM. Make it legendary. How about a SportsLine pick for tomorrow night? Tomorrow we're going to be leaning into Thursday night football. But we've already got some picks up at SportsLine, and a couple of the sharpest that we've got, RJ White and Bruce Marshall, they both like the dog at home in this division game. Bengals +5.5 at -104. I don't think this line is going to move to 6. If anything, maybe it'll by tomorrow move down to 5, because this is a lot of points for a home division dog here. But we've got Bengals +5.5. And again, tomorrow we'll be leaning into props. We'll be leaning into the sides, the totals. You name it, we'll have it for Thursday night football. All right, we got to get to more picks. We got soccer questions for buckets. We've got UFC to talk about. I've got a college football pick for tonight, right after this message from our partners.
Only CBS Sports can bring you big time during the heart of Saturday afternoons. It's big time.
It's big time. It's big time. It's big time.
On CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
We're back on the Early Edge, brought to you by BetMGM. Make it legendary. Ladies and gentlemen, there's football tonight. There was football last night. I actually had a live bet on Arkansas State. I didn't put it out. I put it in, though, and it hit. It hit at the last second there. These are kind of exciting games to watch. I mean, they're not actually dynamic games by any means. The drop-off in talent from these Saturday games is pretty extreme. But I think they're interesting games to analyze live. And that's what I was getting at with Chip Patterson yesterday. You can kind of see what the product is on the field and make your determination as to which way you want to go after the first, second, or maybe even in the middle of the third quarter or at halftime. I'm going to go with Delaware here at -2.5. Now, they're on the road at Jacksonville State. You can find this at 2.5, I believe, at FanDuel. Most other places have it at 3. But the good news, if you want to take it at 3 at like BetMGM or DraftKings or any of those places, you're going to get it at like -105. So the price is going to be, the juice is going to be a lot better. And I'm totally okay taking this at -3 at lesser juice. I just think Delaware is the better team. Now, I'll admit, it was Emery Hunt who tipped me off to this Delaware game, this game specifically on Monday's CBS Sports Network show. It was me, him, Tom Casale, that we always go through for our last segment, a group of 5 FCS games that those two have their eyes on. And Delaware was one of them for Emery Hunt. So I kind of took a deeper dive, and I think this Delaware team is just pretty good. First of all, they're coming off a bye, which I think is pretty important because we've got Jacksonville State on, basically 5 days rest here. But more importantly, they're getting a little healthier on offense. They're a pretty dynamic offense as well. Like they can run the ball, they can pass the ball. You look at Jacksonville State, they really only run the ball, and they're actually very good at it. But I think Delaware, when you look at their weakness on defense, it's really against the pass more than it is the run. So I don't think they can shut down the run by any means. We've got a pretty high total here. But I think they can limit the run. And I think on offense, they offer enough through the run and through the passing game to get this cover and to get this win, of course. So I'm going to take Delaware -2.5 or -3 if that's where you get it. I'm okay with that at -105 or -110 on the road in Jacksonville State tonight for some Wednesday night football. All right, let's transition to UFC before we get to more of your questions. Danny Brasco.
Let's go to UFC Vancouver, and I'm going to right away kick this off with the first fight of the night. Gipper says, I hope Danny isn't going to the Croton-Lisboa fight. Your nightmares have come true, my friend, but it's for all the right reasons because he's casting concerns in the chat about Tainara Lisboa's knee. it's a fade on Lisboa. Give me Melissa Croden on the money line while she's still plus money. She's actually flipped to the favorite on some books. So grab it while you can, while there's still value, because she's the first fighter from Alberta. There's a lot of Canadian fighters in the UFC, but none from Alberta. So she's very proudly repping that. She looks like a physical prospect that, yes, doesn't have very much experience with just a record of 6-2 in her pro career. But I watched her go 5 rounds in the LFA fight promotion with Jacqueline Cavalcante. Not a name that's going to ring bells, but she's the number 11 ranked women's bantamweight right now. I talk about this women's bantamweight class maybe too much on this show, but it's kind of an awkward division where they're constantly looking for new prospects and talent. And I think Croden is clearly the A side in this fight. Lisboa, her opponent, kind of seems like a soft favorite at -120. Gippers talked about her knee in the chat. 2 years ago, she had a horrifying knee injury. She had like reconstructive surgery. She had to relearn how to walk. Like, it was really serious, and she thought she may never fight again. She came back 5 months ago and got utterly dominated. I respect her for making that walk again, but to me, it feels like coming back is the win. Proving to yourself that you're healthy enough to fight is the win. I don't think she's an interesting bantamweight commodity. I think Croden is more aggressive. She's more physical, and she's at home here. So if it ends up going to decision, I think we'll have the judges on our side, perhaps. So the crowd going to be giving her the moments too. And by the way, she's into archery. She had the light heavyweight champion, Alex Pereira, talking about her archery skills. So she's kind of interesting. She's the more aggressive fighter, and I think she wins this fight against a girl who doesn't really belong anymore. I think her 2 wins in the UFC over very weak competition. Lisboa's getting out of here. I think Croden could even finish her at big plus odds. Another Canadian fighter I want to back on this card is Amin Zahabi on the money line at -125. And I think stylistically, this fight favors him in a major way. Of course, hometown advantage. He's a guy that trains at TriStar Gym, famous gym in Montreal, where GSP, George St. Pierre, is the head coach there, or trains out of, I should say. And he was in Zahabi's corner last fight in a war against UFC bantamweight legend Jose Aldo. Aldo missed weight by like 8 pounds. They had to take that fight at a catch weight, and it ended up being really close. But Zahabi gritted through it, ended up on top, landed some vicious elbows, and kind of proved to me his mettle. He's a very technical, sharp striker, really smart counterpuncher, but I wanted to see him in some adversity like that, and that was good to see. He can really grit through it. He has some ground game too. He's fighting an exciting guy in Marlon Chito Vera, who's kind of a fan favorite for his personality and his toughness, but Vera can be overly patient at times. He kind of can stare at his opponents, especially the really technical strikers that have sound defense. So I think the most important weapon in this fight is Zahabi's active jab. While these guys are maybe staring at each other in the mirror, looking to find the range, Zahabi's just going to be popping that jab out there, constantly scoring with that, and his activity will keep him ahead on the scorecard. So I would give out Zahabi by decision because the over is super juiced, but the money line is -125. The decision prop is -115. So on the off chance that he knocks out the durable Chito Vera, just take the money line. I think the style is in his favor, and Zahabi gets a win at home in Canada.
All right, Gipper's pick says he likes this one a lot. I think he's referring to the Zahabi pick. And Joe Neuenfeld says, I often miss weight by 8 pounds. Always good stuff from Joe Neuenfeld. I'm sure we have some more questions to get to, but I want to remind everybody that on CBS Sports Network, today at noon and today at 1 o'clock, it's a 2-hour block of college football picks and NFL picks. Again, college football picks show is today at noon, and today at 1 o'clock is the NFL picks show. You're not going to want to miss that. I do think they put that up on the SportsLine YouTube channel after the fact. But of course, you always want to catch these shows live if you can. We've got that Friday prop show at 1 o'clock on Friday. Shout out to Prop Stars, who absolutely swept the board on Friday there. All right, let's get to some questions before we get everybody out of here. I know there were some soccer questions. Here we go. Jesse Long Bucket says, my book only has Wolfsburg over 2.5 team total. How about match total over 3.5?
I've got absolutely no problem with that. I think Wolfsburg end up scoring 4 here again, so I've got no problem taking that because the defense could be a little bit sticky here as well here for Wolfsburg. Sorry, I said the same thing like 4 times there. Yes, I like that a lot. We also had a question just to jump on this as well, asking if I had any looks for Brazil's Serie A this afternoon. There's a matchup taking place at 6 p.m. Eastern between Palmeiras and Red Bull Bragantino. I really like both teams to score in this game. No shocker there. It's even money, plus 100. Palmeiras, the much better side. But Bragantino are really good at making things just frustrating for their opponents. They have the second highest BTTS hit rate in the entire league at 64%, and it's hit now in 5 of their last 6 matches. I think they're going to make this one difficult for Palmeiras. I think Palmeiras still win, but I love a BTTS there.
All right. Katie Taylor has jumped into the fray here. Amags, I want to get your reaction. I am on Polanco as well, but also taking a shot on Crawford. Hits, runs, RBIs, 1.5 at plus 158. Not ideal lineup spot, but has been hitting well. If you want a Blue Jay, look at Springer at 1.5 for minus 102. Your reaction, Amags?
So I definitely am happy to hear that she's on Polanco. I like that. Springer at that price, top of the lineup on the away team. I mean, they're going to have to pitch to him in all 9 of those innings, right? So I do like that. But the only thing is, like I mentioned, this bullpen is probably going to cut this game short. So any of those at bats later in the game against the bullpen, I think, are just going to be really tough no matter what. So it doesn't make me love betting the Blue Jays hitters. I think I'd much rather bet Seattle hitters now. Of course, you are getting them at home, so some of those prices might be a little bit better, but at the same time, it kind of takes away some of our opportunities. Kind of to the point of the team total there, kind of going first 7 because you think you may not get the bottom of the 9th at bat.
Okay, I want to get to a question about Bieber in a second that I don't think you've answered yet. But Jesse Long says Senators, Sabres under 5.5, and he also says Sabres money line at plus 105. Rick Funcannon says Blackhawks, Blues over 5.5. I think there were some questions about Mikey B because NBA season is starting up and about preview shows. I'll get with Ben I haven't had a chance to discuss that with Ben yet, but I'm sure like that NBA content, Mikey B, I'm sure all of that will be coming very soon, but I will update you by the end of the week on all of that. Talk to me, Amags, about about Bieber over 4.5 Ks.
Yeah, so I think I did mention it here, but the best way that I think if you want to fade him would be on the outs under 14.5. Hope that he gets hit up kind of just to some of those numbers about like we were talking, some of the underlying stuff I just don't love seeing from him. Actually, just looked it up. The fastball for him this season, an average exit velocity of nearly 95 miles an hour. So you're looking at a hard hit ball every time somebody touches that fastball. Kind of an interesting piece there. But with the strikeouts, it wouldn't be the way that I'd want to fade him. I would look to the over or nothing at all. I wouldn't want to go to the under, but if he does get lit up after a few innings, he could very well go under that number. It's just not something against this Mariners team. I mean, he could go 3 innings and get 6 strikeouts, 5 strikeouts. So I'm going to not fade with strikeouts, rather fade with the outs.
I'm going to fade Nikesh because it's the second day in a row that he says, smash the like if you think Caleb is better than Jaden. You said that yesterday. You didn't say the smash the like part. You were just like, Caleb. So like, that's such a ridiculous statement that I don't think anybody's actually taking you seriously. So it's got like, if you're going to make a statement like that, Danny, like, I feel like it has to like have some like shred of potential truth to it. At this point, it's just like, it's like an obvious troll.
And see, the problem is now I can't I was about to like it. Now I can't, right? Because I disagree with that. So now we're missing out on a like for the show.
That's right. Nikesh, you're stealing likes from us. Go ahead, Brasco.
I was going to say, yeah, that's rooted in absurdity. Like I can't, some things you can debate, some things you can just laugh at. That's the latter.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the biggest snub on there, which was putting Daniel Jones ahead of Jackson Dart. I mean, we don't have enough time in the show to talk about that one, but that was egregious.
Jones
I don't know. Okay,
so way too high. It puts Shane Steichen up there instead of him.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Daniel, listen, I was the one preseason that was saying this team, I mean, I wasn't the only one, but I did think this team was better with Daniel Jones than Anthony Richardson. And everybody else was like, oh, I guess the Colts are just giving up on their season, which was like, again, one of the worst takes of all time. Before we get out of here, hand up if you have a question to answer, but go ahead, Brasco, and then we're going to look at my list one more time, and then we're going to get to the recap screen.
Just a couple in the chat that I want. Japan said Matt Frivola moneyline minus 122. I lean to his side. And Gipper said, I'm surprised Danny's not taking Jasmine. She's one of my favorite underdogs on the card. Jasmine Jasudavicius at plus 190. The only reason I didn't give her out right away, I might do it on Friday, is because she literally did the intro video on my old podcast, and I felt like it was a lot of bias. But I think she's super live. So I might talk about that fight on Friday, Gippers.
Japan says Matt Frivola money line minus 122. A nice tease, Brasco, for Big Pick Energy Friday. All right, let's Ben, if you don't mind, for the audio listeners, I want to put the list up so they kind of know what we're talking about here. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Be sure to rate the podcast if you can. All right, here's 1 through 32. I can't really read okay, now I can read the bottom here. Real quick, I'm going to say this real fast. We'll get to the recap screen. I'll go 10 at a time. Top 10, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Matt Stafford, Jaden Daniels, Baker, Drake May, Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott. 11 through 20, Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, Sam Darnold, Brock Purdy, Daniel Jones, CJ Stroud, Bo Nix, Kyler Murray. 21 through 32, Tua, Jackson Dart, Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Flacco, Michael Penix, Geno Smith, JJ McCarthy, Bryce Young, Cam Ward, Spencer Rattler, Justin Fields. These are starting quarterbacks only outside of the from opening week, outside of the Jackson Dart, Russell Wilson switch. So I'm not rating backup quarterbacks here. Okay, so your audio listeners, now you've got my list. You can post your list on Twitter, tag us, or post it under my list that I put on Twitter. I want to see what you have to say. I'll note that Trevor Lawrence is number 24 on here. That's what spurred this entire list debate. We got to get to the recap screen. We got to get you out of here. I'm on Delaware tonight, -2.5. I played at 3. I've got this 2.5 at -120. We go to buckets. We got Wolfsburg over 1.5 team total, plus Barcelona over 3.5 team total, even money. We go to UFC, Melissa Croden money line plus 102, and Ayman Zahabi money line -125. I got a 50% shake there. Ayman? It's Ayman, isn't it? Ayman Zahabi. All right. Mariners money line -130. That one courtesy of Amags. And we talked about a lot of picks for baseball tonight. Amags will be in the Discord. Katie Taylor put out some picks among many of you others in the chat. So appreciate that. And then for tomorrow, we're going to have Thursday night football. We're going to have our early edge show talking and leaning into that. But for now, we've got the Bengals plus 5.5 at -104. Both RJ White and Bruce Marshall have given that one out. Darren Mercurio, Giuseppe, Igor, Brad Morris, Nikesh, J Metz, John. Thanks, everybody. Tobbs, everybody, thanks for being in the chat today. We're going to have a great show tomorrow. Don't forget about all the content on CBS Sports Network today. 12 o'clock college football show, 1 o'clock NFL picks show. Big thank you to Danny Brasco, Buckets, Amags, and of course, Ben on the 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s. Buckets, you want to close?
We rest our case.
Oh, he did it right.